If, like many people, you wanted to know what happened to the Michael Keaton variant of Batman after Batman Returns, 2023 hit you with a double whammy, with the release of the hardcover Batman '89 comic book, and the release of the Flash movie, which Michael Keaton was supposed to appear in some more DC movies, but those kind of got canceled. I mean, Aquaman 2 came out, but it was different than it originally was going to be. You know what didn't get canceled though? The Batman '89 comic series, which they just released the Batman '89 Echoes hardcover, and you gotta appreciate how they made it look like a VHS. But overall, is this book any good? So essentially the storyline for this book takes place 2 years after the first Batman '89 comic, which that was called Shadows and this is called Echoes. And basically when it came to the Shadows storyline, I enjoyed it, but I did think it didn't quite feel like the same vibe as the Tim Burton movies. Anyways though, in the new Echoes storyline, after Batman had been retired for a while, there's only been imposter Batman that just want to feel special and do the job for him. And I think that whole idea was very much inspired by the Dark Knight movie.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
But long story short, Batman is actually doing some undercover work that involves him assuming someone else's identity and then going to Arkham Asylum, where there's just a ton of DC characters throughout the story. And everything eventually crescendos to a big, gigantic finale. But first of all, I want to focus on the returning characters. I actually really liked what they did with Batman in here. There was kind of a build-up to where he first put his suit on in the end of the 4th comic. And then the 5th and 6th comic go pretty crazy with the action. And I think it's all done in a pretty satisfying way. But Batman assumes the identity of this guy that was a victim of the fear toxin, Robert Lowery, also known as Firefly. Which Firefly is a villain from Batman comics, not to be confused with Firebug or Killer Moth, but his secret identity has been multiple people that were not named Robert Lowery. Fun fact, Robert Lowery was the second actor to play Batman, and it was in a 1949 serial. However, Batman first appeared in a 1943 serial played by Lewis Wilson, who's actually the secret identity of Robert Lowery, who's the secret identity of Bruce Wayne. And
nope, scratch that, reverse it.
And so it's a little complicated, but I like the references to the OG Batman actors. Now, Commissioner Gordon is referenced a couple of times, but he did die in the Shadows storyline. And I thought it was kind of weird how in both of these books he's shown wearing glasses, even though in the movies he did not wear glasses in this universe. Although, I mean, I guess he could have just got glasses at some point. And they tried to make it seem like there was a very deep relationship between Batman and Gordon in this universe. Which, if you saw the Tim Burton movies, that's really not actually that true.
Thanks for saving the day, Batman. I'm afraid the circus gang is back.
We'll see.
Okay, bye.
Although, of course, they could have just gotten a better relationship in between Batman Returns and Batman '89 Shadows. And this also implies that Commissioner Gordon was the first cop that Bruce Wayne saw after his parents were murdered, that comforted him, basically like how they did it in the Dark Knight trilogy. Barbara Gordon is also in this book, and she's not very likable. She just hates Batman for no reason. I mean, I guess there are reasons to not be the biggest fan of a vigilante when you're in the police force. But towards the end, she turns into Batgirl, and it feels a little bit forced, but whatever, it's fine. Alfred is also great in this book. For some reason in Shadows, they made him have a mustache, because I guess in most comic interpretations, Alfred has a mustache, even though in the movies, this version of the character didn't have a mustache. And then here they go back to him not having a mustache, which the in-universe explanation must be that he grew out a mustache and then shaved it. I don't know why I'm making it that deep, I just thought it was worth noting. Harvey Bullock also did survive the events of Shadows, and he doesn't play a huge role in the story, but it's nice that he's in the book, because somehow he still hasn't been in any live-action Batman movie. And then you have the new Drake Winston, aka Robin, returning, and he also has his own sidekicks in this called the Nightwings, which is a reference to Nightwing, obviously. And when it comes to these comics, I didn't feel like it was necessary for them to create a new version of Robin when you already have Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, and Damian Wayne, these different versions from the comics to pull from. But at this point, I don't really care that much, it's whatever. And then Catwoman also has a very small role in this book, not really having a huge effect on the plot, but it is nice that she's there. And at this point, it almost feels like they should bring back characters like Vicky Vale or Alexander Knox from this universe, or even have Jack Nicholson's Joker appear in a vision as like a ghost or something like that, which they were actually going to do something similar to that in the sequel to Batman and Robin, which never happened for obvious reasons. Although there is an old recording of the Joker shown on a TV at this news station, Also, Alicia Hunt makes a cameo appearance, which I thought she died in the original movie.
You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs.
But you have a ton of other characters in here that are new and kind of forgettable, like this guy that works at the news station named Chuck. But between the news station and Arkham Asylum is a very important character named Harley Quinn. Does that ring a bell? Now this obviously is a different version because there was no Joker for her to be the girlfriend of, which makes it to where you just have to do a completely new interpretation of the character. And overall I thought it was okay. She's a psychiatrist that's just, her mind's already been lost. And she basically works with the people at Arkham Asylum and turns them more crazy than they already are. And she was supposed to be modeled after Madonna in this. Another huge character is Dr. Jonathan Crane, aka Scarecrow, who's modeled after Jeff Goldblum, which is a phenomenal actor, by the way. And he's a character I was really excited to see in this universe. I would say overall he's done justice. He's probably the standout of the new characters in this book. But man, there's just a lot of other stuff going on with all these different characters. It's hard to keep up with it all. Especially at first. I feel like pacing-wise, the story is a bit overstuffed at first, and then towards the middle, it's a little more slow-paced, and then it's overstuffed at the end. Also, Hugo Strange is referenced in this. He's already died at this point, but he was like a mentor to Jonathan Crane. One of the asylum patients is Edward Nigel Maynard, who they're very much setting up as the Riddler, as he has this obsession with puzzles, riddles. Also in the asylum is Blockbuster, a DC villain, kind of like Hulk, but not that Hulk-tastic. And then towards the end, they have this whole thing with Ra's al Ghul being a character. And it doesn't seem like he actually has a prior relationship with Batman, which is a little bit weird. Who was mentoring him in this universe when he was traveling the world? It was hinted at in the original movie. So anyways, there's a lot of crazy stuff with this fear gas that sets up the plot and it kind of concludes with it. Turns people into crazy animals, kind of like the Gas in the Naked Gun movie that got released. And originally when it came to the first Batman 89 book, I was hoping that it would have a similar storyline to many of the comics when it came to how they adapted the villains. Just more of the classic, iconic Detective Comics storylines, like with Two-Face getting the acid thrown on his face in the court. Instead of what they did there, and even here what they do with Ra's al Ghul and Harley Quinn. It's kind of different from the usual interpretations, but at this point it's very clearly just an Elseworlds thing that's trying to be very unique. I guess that's what the Tim Burton universe pretty much is, and I don't really care that much at this point. It's fine. I would like to have a sequel to this book since it's clearly setting a bunch of stuff up. Overall, I enjoyed it. I liked the art style. But my main complaint is that it can just definitely feel very overstuffed at different points just because of all these different references to Batman stuff. It feels very much like it's rushing to set up more stuff for the future, which I don't mind when you can put a ton of characters in one book or movie at once as long as you can do it well. And there definitely was room for improvement in this situation. It's just a lot for only 6 issues. With all that being said though, I did enjoy it and like the character dynamics. I think this was an improvement over the Batman 89 Shadows storyline. It doesn't feel like this is exactly how it would go if Tim Burton made his own sequel to his Batman movies. But certain character interactions at different points do feel like this is kind of a Tim Burton movie, just much more so than the previous book. Overall, on the shortwave meter, I'm giving this a 74 out of 100. If you're a fan of the Shadows storyline, I recommend you check this out. If you've read it, let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.